Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really fascinating set of sources, all exploring this idea that genuine curiosity could actually be an antidote to chronic anxiety.
Yeah, it's a compelling angle.
So the sources suggest, instead of sort of wrestling your anxiety into submission, you just distract it with something better, something like genuine curiosity. We're diving into these two concepts, squirrel interest and the sanity quilt.
That's right. And our mission today really is to unpack those ideas quickly, give you, the listener, a kind of practical framework, something you can actually use to shift your attention consciously away from that feeling of danger, the anxiety spiral, towards, well, delight, towards the creative spiral.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The core idea seems to be, well, we don't need some massive, complicated life overhaul. We can literally just sort of stitch together a fulfilling life by prioritizing the things that genuinely grab our curiosity. You know, the stuff we usually brush off as silly or unproductive. And this whole philosophy seems to hang on a really powerful story right at the start, involving a woman named Frida. She's described as highly anxious, with extreme chemical sensitivities.
Which meant her actual survival depended on her service dog, Griffin, a border collie trained to detect, life-threatening triggers in her environment.
Right, so the stakes couldn't be higher. But even with Griffin, this, perfectly reliable protector, Frida was completely stuck in this awful anxiety loop.
Yeah, constantly running these internal narratives, picturing danger, almost chanting to herself, danger is everywhere.
Yep.
Heartbreaking, really.
And here's the twist. The dog, Griffin, was apparently perfect, flawless, except for one tiny thing. He absolutely could not resist chasing squirrels. It was his one single behavioral flaw. A big no-no for a service dog, right?
You'd think so. But what's fascinating is how the coaches working with them flipped that. They didn't see it as a failure. They suggested maybe Griffin wasn't messing up. Maybe he was trying to teach Frida something.
Teach her what? How to chase squirrels?
Sort of. A lesson in joy, maybe? Playfulness, silliness. They actually ask her, what if Griffin's trying to show you that even though, yes, danger is everywhere, maybe squirrels are everywhere too?
Wow. So they took the dog's one distraction, the thing pulling him off his vital job, and said that's the lesson. I mean, that sounds almost risky.
Yeah.
But also kind of brilliant.
It is brilliant, and it worked. Because when that metaphor, squirrels everywhere, meaning these little bursts of fun and unexpected delight, when that finally landed for Frida, she actually broke her own pattern. She genuinely smiled, maybe even chuckled a little.
Yeah.
And that's when Griffin, who'd been perfectly still, the source says he lost his religion.
Huh. I love that phrase.
Yeah. He jumps into her lap, licking her face, his whole body wagging, completely breaking protocol. It was like this immediate physical thumbs up from her nervous system. Like you're saying, yes, that's it, you got it.
So the nervous system itself rewards that shift from the fear loop to the curiosity loop.
Precisely. It recognizes and reinforces moving attention from that anxiety spiral to their creative spiral.
Okay, so if that's the goal, shifting attention, how do we find our own squirrel interests? Because these aren't just solving a crossword clue, right?
No, not fleeting curiosity. The sources describe them as topics or activities that endlessly fascinate you. They're always fresh, always compelling. The more you learn about something, maybe it's visual arts for you, or ancient Rome, or bird watching, the more you want to know. They make you curiouser and curiouser, as Alice would say.
Right. But that brings up a really important point, doesn't it? How do we know if something is a true squirrel passion, something that actually leads towards, sanity versus just a temporary fixation? Or worse, an addiction that just feeds the anxiety cycle.
That's a critical distinction. And the sources offer a clear way to tell. True passions, true squirrel interests, they consistently move you away from anxiety. They actually increase those qualities of your core self, things like clarity, connection, calmness. They feel empowering, generative.
Okay, so they build you up.
Exactly. Whereas the things we sometimes mistake for passion, often addictive behaviors, whether it's scrolling, social media, gambling, substances, whatever, they might give you a short-term hit, like a brief escape. But they're almost always followed immediately by this rush of intense anxiety or dependence or loss. A true squirrel interest stabilizes you over time. An addiction, even if it feels compelling, ultimately destabilizes you.
Okay, that makes sense. But, I think a lot of us get really good at ignoring those genuine interests. Anxiety tells us they're frivolous, or society tells us we need to focus on appropriate, productive things.
Absolutely. We lose touch with that feeling. So if finding a passion starts with just a faint sensation, like a little pull, we need to get better at recognizing it. The sources call this the push versus pull skill.
Push versus pull, how does that work?
Well, there's a simple exercise you can do. Think back to any learning experience you've had, school, a job, training, anything. First, identify an anti-squirrel. That subject or task you absolutely dreaded. Just thinking about it made you feel heavy, maybe.
Oh yeah, definitely have a few of those.
Okay, feel that feeling in your body. That's the push. It's draining. It feels like walking uphill into a strong wind. It makes you want to avoid it, right?
Totally. Avoidance is key.
Now flip it. Identify a squirrel. Something you actually enjoyed learning or doing, even if it seemed unimportant at the time. Maybe a specific hobby, a type of music, figuring out a complex recipe.
Okay, got one.
Now notice that feeling. It's lighter, isn't it? It's effortless, almost like walking downhill with the wind at your back. It makes you lean in, want to look closer, learn more. That's the pull.
I see. Push is resistance, pull is attraction.
Exactly. And the goal isn't to immediately find your life's passion. It's just to get familiar with those physical sensations, the push and the pull as you go through your day. Driving, working, scrolling online. Your body usually knows what's genuinely nourishing versus what's draining long before your conscious mind catches on.
Well, what if you do that exercise and nothing? Just feel kind of flat, no pull towards anything? Yeah?
That's a really important signal. The sources are pretty clear on this. If you feel zero curiosity, no pull towards anything at all, the odds are incredibly high that you're simply exhausted.
Just burnt out.
Completely burned out. Exhaustion is probably the single biggest killer of curiosity and creativity.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that feeling. Is there a way to sort of gauge how bad the burnout is?
There's a fun little thought experiment called the fairy godmother test. Imagine a fairy godmother appears and mandates you have to spend a whole month doing nothing but sleeping, resting, relaxing in some beautiful, soothing place. No responsibilities whatsoever.
Okay, sounds nice.
Now, how does that idea feel? If it sounds so unbelievably delicious that it almost makes you want to cry with longing, then yeah, you're likely too fundamentally tired to even access the creative, curious part of your brain right now.
Right. A month off sounds amazing, but definitely not happening for most of us.
And you don't need it. That's the good news. The sources suggest that even just about 4 nights and 4 days of genuinely good rest and sleep has to be the absolute #1 priority here. That can be enough. It's like a magic charm to just get your energy levels back above that empty line.
Just enough to maybe feel a flicker of curiosity again.
Exactly. You simply cannot build life based on curiosity if your tank is completely empty. Rest first.
Okay, so assuming we're rested, even a little bit, this is where it gets really interesting, right? Because once you have a bit of energy, your brain naturally starts seeking out those pulls again. And that puts you on what the sources call the creativity spiral.
Yeah, it's this natural escalation. It starts small and grows.
It begins with just that spontaneous reaction, like, oh, wow, that's cool. Simple recognition.
Then it deepens a bit, maybe becomes, oh, wow, that is so cool. More engagement.
Then comes that little bit of longing. I wish I could do that.
And finally, that clicks into actual intention. You know what? I'm going to figure out how to do that. From passive interest to active pursuit.
Right. And to help that along, to sort of catch those initial sparks, there's this idea of a ragbag of curiosities.
Yeah, and it's deliberately low-key. It's just a container. It could be a shoebox, a folder on your computer, a Pinterest board, whatever works for you. It's just a place to toss in these little scraps of interest.
Anything that gives you that, oh, wow, feeling.
Anything at all. The key is it has to be a genuine pull for you. Not something you think should interest you or something that looks impressive. It's about pure, authentic resonance.
And the examples they give are great because they're so wonderfully random. Like you might collect links about extreme skiers, photos of Hokusai prints.
Videos of people dancing down Broadway or showing up at the airport in T-Rex costume.
Or my personal favorite you mentioned earlier, pictures of silly animals that you caption yourself with affirmations, like that otter stealing ice cream.
All my dreams are coming true in this moment.
Right.
The main point of the ragbag is just enjoyment. Pure, simple fun. The secondary goal down the line is maybe using those scraps to actually build something in your life.
Okay, so you gather these things that genuinely pull you in. And when you focus on them, when you really engage with a true passion, you hit that state of flow, right? Mihali's famous concept.
That's it.
We all kind of know flow feels good. You lose track of time. You're totally absorbed. But why is that state specifically a potent antidote to chronic anxiety and that endless rumination?
That's the neurological magic trick, essentially.
Jeez.
Think about it. Anxiety, worry, that constant internal chatter of danger is everywhere. That's primarily driven by the left hemisphere of the brain. Language, analysis, planning, and worrying.
Okay.
Flow, on the other hand, that state of complete absorption where time disappears, that's an almost total takeover by the right hemisphere, the nonverbal, intuitive, holistic side.
So when you're in flow.
When you're deeply in flow, focusing intently on one of your squirrel interests, your right brain is fully engaged, fully occupied. And this is the crucial part. It makes it almost neurologically impossible for the left brain's anxiety and rumination circuits to run at the same time.
You can't be fully in flow and actively anxious simultaneously.
Pretty much. The right brain hogs all the bandwidth. It's basically an attention hack. You're not fighting the anxiety, you're just fully engaging a different part of your brain that crowds it out.
Wow. Okay, so collecting scraps, finding flow. How does this connect to the bigger picture? You mentioned the sanity quilt earlier.
Right. That's the ultimate goal, according to these sources. You take all these diverse, seemingly random scraps of curiosity from your rag bag, and you start to weave them together into the fabric of your actual life. That becomes your sanity quilt.
But hang on, isn't our whole society built on these predefined quilt patterns? Like, you're supposed to follow the successful career pattern, or the perfect parent pattern, or the wise retiree pattern. Aren't we supposed to pick one and stick to it? Why make our own weird quilt?
Well, that's precisely the trap. Our culture pushes these templates on. It's a business tycoon quilt, the perfect influencer quilt, whatever. And what happens when we try to force ourselves to stitch together materials we don't actually like into these pre-approved patterns?
It feels wrong, stiff, grating.
Exactly. It leads to these stiff, brittle, grating lives. And ironically, that's often where the anxiety spirals really take hold, even for people who look incredibly successful on the outside, according to those standard patterns.
So the alternative is the crazy quilt method, sanity quilting.
Yes. And it's very much a right hemisphere process. It's intuitive, it's messy, it's experimental. You don't start with a pattern. Start with one piece of fabric. You genuinely love one core curiosity from your rag bag.
Okay, like the hokusai print.
Right. And you just start sewing outward from there. Maybe in a rough circle, literally, a creativity spiral on fabric. You add another piece you love, maybe it connects, maybe it clashes wonderfully. You experiment constantly. You rearrange. And crucially, you have to embrace the idea that wonky is good. It's supposed to look unique, maybe even a little strange.
I like that. Wonky is good. So how do we actually do this? What's the practical skill?
The core skill is really about making a tiny, consistent commitment. You pick one pull item from your rag bag, that hokusai print, the T-Rex video, whatever it is, and you carve out just 10 to 20 minutes every single day. Just to learn more about it, engage with it, play with it, purely for fun. No pressure for it to be productive or lead anywhere specific.
10 to 20 minutes daily, that sounds manageable. But here's the rub. That sounds great until, the alarm goes off 5 minutes later because I have a meeting I have to be at. How do we genuinely treat 10 minutes of looking at otter pictures as the centerpiece of the day, like the sources suggest, and not just some optional extra that gets dropped first?
That's the fundamental mindset shift. It's completely countercultural, right? But you have to decide that this tiny activity, however weird or unproductive it seems, is the anchor point of your day. It's non-negotiable.
So it's not nice to have, it's a must-do.
It's prioritizing feeding your soul over just feeding the anxiety machine or the productivity machine. Once you make that commitment, then you start gradually adding more interesting rags to your quilt over time. And you have to be prepared to rip pieces out, cut things up, rearrange them if they stop feeling like a pull, let it look strange.
And probably be prepared for some side-eye from others, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You'll need to actively soothe your own inner critic, that anxiety creature, because doing something this authentic often attracts external criticism. Why are you wasting time on that? You just have to trust the pull.
There's that great real-world example of Evelyn in the sources. She was this high-flying HR manager, but suffering from really severe depression.
Yeah, totally shut down. The only time she showed even a flicker of light was when she talked about taking her young daughters to their dance classes. But she'd immediately dismiss her own childhood love of dance as just a wasteful time suck. Girl push language.
But she started small, right?
Right.
With that 10 minutes?
She did. Just dancing by herself in her bedroom. Then she got brave enough to take an adult class. And slowly, that one rag started connecting to others. It revitalized her marriage, apparently. Eventually, she started teaching dance to kids on the side.
And the outcome wasn't about becoming a famous choreographer or anything.
Not at all. The outcome was that her depression and anxiety completely lifted. Why? Because she finally prioritized her squirrel interest. her creative spiral, over the fear spiral and the societal shoulds. She started building her actual sanity quilt.
That's powerful. So, bringing it all together,
Huh.
what's the final takeaway here? It seems to be about redefining success, maybe. Using Griffin the dog again. His perfect life, his quilt is made of his job, his human, food, sleep, and lots of squirrels.
Exactly. The people who build these authentic sanity quilts, they gain this incredible kind of wealth. It's not money, necessarily. It's the deep, intrinsic joy of chasing your squirrels, whatever they are. It's giving yourself permission to spend time actually nourishing your heart and soul.
And the real kicker is often money and conventional success do follow, don't they? But as a side effect.
Totally. Think about people like Glennon Doyle or that military dog trainer Zoe the source mentions. They found huge success because they were so relentlessly focused on their unique passion, their squirrels. They did it for the love of it.
If they'd started out trying to engineer success or follow a standard pattern, they probably would have killed the very thing that made them compelling, right? The joy, the authenticity.
Absolutely. Which leads to the core message for you, the listener. You can't get the life you truly want by just copying the patterns of other successful people's quilts. You have to replicate the method.
And that method is.
Absolute authenticity. Starting small with those genuine pulls and continually finding ways to connect your unique, maybe even weird interests. Let your quilt be yours.
It reminds me of that Steve Jobs story, how he was fascinated by the calligraphy course he dropped into, but also by the sleek design of a Cuisinart food processor, and then watching a newborn calf figure out how to stand up.
Totally disparate things. But later, those weird scraps connected in his mind. The elegance of calligraphy influenced fonts on the Mac. The self-contained Cuisinart shape influenced the look of the early computers. The calf struggling to its feet convinced him computers needed to work instantly, right out of the box. His quilt was made of really strange personal fabrics.
So that process, sanity quilting, just combining the things that genuinely light you up, that's the real work.
That's arguably the fundamental task we're here for. It's not about power or status. It's about achieving mastery and flow for the sheer joy of exploring your own unique, creative capacities. We're all actually meant to feel absorbed and engaged by life, most of the time.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. If your life right now feels more like a series of draining pushes than energizing pulls, what is the one single tiny scrap of curiosity, your very first little, oh wow, that's cool, that you will commit just 10 minutes to investigating today? What's the first stitch you'll make in choosing authenticity over expectation?